Welcome to Juice powered by Lemon Seed Marketing. We are thrilled to have you here and we can't wait to dive in and talk about all things digital from PPC, SEO, your email strategies, and further. We're so excited to have you here and let's jump right in and talk about our digital strategy and see how we can partner to make sure that your digital strategy is exactly where it needs to be as we spring into spring. So some of you are like, digital marketing, absolutely, I love it. And then others are like, what does that mean? So digital marketing is the promotion of products, services, or brands via one or more forms of electronic media. Great, sounds awesome, right? We get it. So, exactly what that means is digital marketing is not standing there with a megaphone just yelling through it saying, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do. The best way to explain digital marketing is word of mouth, right? So, the more people that we have talking, the more avenues that we have our marketing in, the better off we are. So, with digital marketing, we need to make sure that our website's up to date. We've got our SEO strategy, our backlinks, and everything where they need to be. And then also that we've got that PPC strategy, pay per click, right there in line as well if we're utilizing a pay per click strategy. And then we've got to make sure that our email campaigns and our funnels and everything there are also in line with exactly who we are and what we are representing as a company. So the best thing that we can talk about with marketing, it is not a one size fits all, right? We have to have little bits and pieces of marketing going at all times to make sure that the bigger picture is our brand and that we're representing our brand in the fullest. So as we go through this, I want you to guys to think of some goals. Some goals that we're all going to have in mind and that we're all going to have the same goals at the end of the day are going to be that we want to increase our brand awareness, right? Everybody here would be thrilled if they could continue to increase brand awareness. Now, what's an example of increasing brand awareness? Well, prime example of that would be when people go to Google, we would rather them search us by name then HVAC contractor near me or heating and cooling services near me. We want them to know Yellow Bear Air HVAC in my area. And so then they are searching for a specific name because we have that brand awareness and they already know who they are utilizing instead of shopping for that service. The next thing is we want to expand our market, right? If we can continue to grow and expand our market, then that's opening us up into a whole new world of possibilities as far as who is out there and what services we can provide for them. So we want to make sure that our backyard area that we are dominating in that backyard area, and then after that we want to expand into the other service areas around us to continue to grow that business. And then lastly, I think we would all agree that we want to increase sales, right? The higher of an increase of sale, the more return on ad spend that we're having, the happier we all are as a whole. So those are three of the big things that we're going to focus on. And when we talk about digital at the end of it, those are all goals that our digital strategy can help with. So we're going to increase brand awareness, we're going to expand our market, and then we're going to, at the end of it all, we want to make sure that we are increasing sales. So how do we do that, you ask? Some of the biggest ways that we can do that with digital marketing is we like we talked about. We're going to build that brand awareness in our community. We want to reinforce learning. So what does that look like? One of the easiest ways that we can reinforce learning is by utilizing our social media channels, right? If we can use our social media, which is digital, right? So it's online. So we've got our digital social media. We want to make sure that we are there as a tool and a resource. Okay. So a lot of people don't know a whole lot about HVAC, right? So we as contractors and marketers in the HVAC industry, we understand the lingo and we know what's going on. But we want to share that information with our prospective clients and customers so they are building trust and value within us. And so they are more comfortable when it comes time to making that decision of who is going to service their unit. Who's going to protect their home? Who's going to make sure that in the winter they're warm and in the summer they're cool? So, if we can continue to reinforce the learning by sharing information, sharing tips, so sharing some insights on our social media, and share it from our personal people within our company, then that trust is going to organically build. The other thing that is going to be happening with this digital is we want to increase recruitment, right? So if we can show that this is a great place to work, we love our employees, we're here for them, we're upbeat, we've got all the things going, and as times are changing, we're changing with it. It's going to be an organic tool that we can utilize for recruitment. Then we also want to make sure that we're growing our SEO. So SEO is our search engine optimization, right? So SEO is not a plug it in, it's done, we don't ever have to touch it again, it's good to go, we don't look at it. Absolutely not. Our SEO, we have to continue as we grow, as times change. We have to change and modify our SEO to make sure that we're always populating when we need to be, okay? So when you think about it, Google's one of those things, it's going to crawl all the time, right? So if we have the same content from 5 years ago and we haven't changed anything at all, Google looks at that and says, oh, you're not changing what you're doing. You're not growing as your business is growing. I'm not going to push you up to the top and let you be one of the top searches whenever people are looking for heating or cooling services near me because you're not investing into your digital SEO. So if you're not investing in it, Google's not going to invest in you. So there's some different ways that we're going to talk about how we can do that. How do we grow our SEO so then in return, Google allows us to grow organically online? Then the next thing we want to talk about is engaging customers. How do we get that engagement from our customers so they're just as involved and bought into what we're doing as we are? All right. So those are some of the things that we're going to dive in, we're going to look at, and we're going to figure out how do we make and modify that to fit us best and allow us to grow organically digitally. So we know that as a society, everything's moving digital, right? So right now, it is showing that 85% of our sales are done on a digital basis. So that means they're going digital to find who their service provider is going to be. They're either scheduling that appointment digitally, they're converting and interacting with a text campaign or an email campaign. Any of those things are what our society is moving towards. So it's all about the convenience factor, right? The more convenient it is, the easier it is for them, the higher rate of return we're going to have on all of those investments. So when we talk about your website, of course we all know our website's digital. There's a couple, three main things we're going to talk about with the website specifically that we need to make sure we have and we drive home so that our website is performing as well as it can on a digital basis. So the first one, and this is a big one, we need to make sure that our speed of our website is fast. Okay, so we have to make sure that the backside of it is not bogged down and it's not taking a lot of clicks to get to where we need to be, and that they're not having to search a whole lot and wait to make those interactions and conversions that they're going for. Right now, people, you've got about 3 clicks to get people before they're lost, okay? So if we haven't made those 3-click touch points and they're where they want to be and where they feel like they need to be, then they're moving on to the next one. So as easy and convenient as it can be, it has to be to keep them engaged and to keep them on our site and getting out of it what they're looking for. The next one is clear conversions, all right? So we've got to have those clear CTAs. So we've got to have those clear call to actions to make sure they know exactly what's going on. If we have an offer out there that we're trying to really promote hard right now, and maybe we're getting close to an expiration date on it, or we're going to try to just launch one, we have to make sure they see that CTA, that call to action, and they know exactly what is going on, right? So if they're kind of lost and they're like, oh, well, I don't know if this is exactly what it's saying. Oh, I don't want to call, and maybe it's not $500 off, or maybe it's not a free tune up, whatever it may be. If we are not as clear and concise as possible, then we're going to lose that conversion and they're going to move to the next person. The next biggest thing for us, and this is our third thing on websites, is the analytics. So, what do you think that means? What's the biggest part of our analytics with our websites? We have to have clear tracking. All right. So we all know we talk tracking numbers all day long and we know what the tracking is. But if we do not have the tracking set up properly, we have no idea what is working, what is not working, and maybe why it's not working, right? So if our analytics are not there, our tracking is not set up, I have no idea what is my top viewed page. I have no idea what my bounce rate is, how long people are staying on those pages. What are they going from, right? Are they going from my home page to my services page, or are they going from services to schedule? I need to be able, as a contractor and as a marketer, to say, hey, this is the line of progress. This is how people are getting from point A to point B, and then I've got that conversion at the end of it. But if I don't have that tracking set up, then I have no idea if it's working or if it's not. So if you don't have tracking set up at the end of the day, you're really throwing marketing dollars out there and having no way to know if they're working, right? So that wouldn't be the best strategy that any of us would want to implement. We want to make sure that we have our tracking as solid as possible. So, the three big things that we just talked about for website: speed. We've got to make it fast. We have to make it efficient and effective to keep them engaged, keep them on there, and get them the information that they need as fast as possible for the convenience of it all. The second, that clear conversion. We've got to know exactly what we're talking about. We can't have that gray area, right? We've got black or white, and the gray in the in between is when we lose them. So we've got to make sure that we eliminate that as much as possible. And then the analytics. We all know if we don't have tracking set up today, we're going to make sure that we've got it set up by tomorrow so that we know exactly what's happening. Is it working? Is it not? Why is it not? And let's dig into it and make it work better for you for the next quarter. Absolutely. And if you're questioning some of this stuff, reach out to Lemonseed, reach out to your account manager and say, hey, I want to make sure I've got this going. I'm really eager to get it. I need to make sure that I am as effective with my digital strategy as possible. We're here to help you with every single bit of this. Next is going to be SEO. So 92% of people go to the first page and that's all they do. They're not really going through and digging a whole lot. They're taking there and they're saying, Google, pop this one up first for me. It's got to be good. Let's click on it. Let's go. So, what does that mean for us? We have to make sure that we are populating where and when we need to populate. So, what does that look like? Well, with our SEO, that means we have to make sure that our keywords are in place for where they need to be. All right. We also have to make sure that we are sharing content regularly. Okay. So, Google used to crawl service pages like HVAC about once a month. Right now, they are crawling it every week and a half. So, what does that mean for us? We need to make sure that we are continuing to populate new content on our site. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but I just want to reiterate it and make sure I drive this home. If we are not buying into our site, neither is Google. So, as we grow, as we add new services, as things change, if we are not showing that on our website and we are not actively engaging in our site to produce new content, Google is not going to have our backs to make sure we're making that first page every time we pop up, right? So, what are some easy ways we can do that? One of the easiest ways we can do that as contractors is we can share some case studies. Now, what does a case study look like? It's not as big and scary of a word as it sounds, right? So, a case study can be as simple as somebody had a unit in a really unique, awkward place, and this is how we figured out how to service it, or maybe we did a new unit install on it. Whatever that looks like, that's a case study. Okay, so we're going to show a problem and then we're going to show a solution as how we fixed it. And we're going to populate that on our website as a case study and give that information because maybe somebody has recently had a contractor come out and they said, oh no, this is going to be way too big of a job for us. It's way too difficult. We don't know how to get to it. Or maybe they just had a bad experience. Okay. And so they're shopping for that second opinion. If we have relevant content and we're talking about the things that we're seeing when we're on the job, we're building that trust that is so important nowadays. So if we can share stories like this, because at the end of the day, we're all storytellers, right? Some of us may like to talk more than others, but we all have stories to share. So if we can format those in the form of a case study, and a lot of your vendors and us here at Lemon Seed are there to help you with this, right? So we can help you write these, we can get them formulated how they need to look. And then we'll make sure that we're populating these on your website so it's new content that Google can interact with and crawl with on a weekly, bi weekly basis. So you're just as engaged with your site as Google is. Okay. So the next big thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that with our SEO strategy, we have backlinking. So we want to make sure that maybe we've got a chamber of commerce, maybe we have a visitors bureau that has like new services that people who just moved in are going to look for. We want to make sure that if we're sponsoring anything, we've got a backlinking on their page as well that directly puts them onto our website. So the more backlinking that we can have, the better off we are, right? So we want to make sure that we have those relationships and that we're sharing that content as we move along. So we talked 92% of people go to the very first page that populates on Google. So it's so important that we are making sure that our keywords are in line. We want to make sure we populate every time that somebody's looking for heating services near me, cooling services near me, HVAC services near me. We have to make sure that our keywords are in line with who we are and what we represent, as well as sharing that content, right? I know we are all going to start sharing those case studies because we see the importance in them, right? Maybe it takes us an hour, 2 hours a month to sit there and come down with some ideas, talk about the things that have happened. But what I recommend, if you're having those team meetings with your guys and gals in the mornings, maybe you do it on a once a month or weekly basis, ask them. Be like, hey, talk to me. What was something that you saw that was unique on the job? What was a problem that you had to figure out on the fly, and how did you solve that problem? What did it look like, right? Jot down those ideas. We don't have to do them all at once, but now we kind of have a bank of things that have happened. We have technicians that we can talk to, installers that we can talk to, and kind of get their side of it. Bring them in so they are bought into exactly what you're doing and they feel that value because you're asking them, hey, what are you seeing? What did it look like? How did you solve it? And then you've got that bank like we talked about, and we can start knocking those out, and then we have them to utilize when we need them. We're not going to throw them all out at once, right? That's not what Google wants to see. So we're going to make sure that we have a strategy as far as when we're going to put those case studies out and why we're going to put them out. And then lastly, we're going to make sure that we have as many backlinks on there as possible. So we're going to make sure that we have those networking connections that we're working with in our communities and see if we can help them and they can help us, just to help keep that SEO strategy in line and keep it promoting us as much as possible. Next, we're going to dive into PPC. All right, pay per click. So some of you may have a pay per click strategy running. Some of you may not. Some of you may do it seasonally. Some of you may do it year round. It just depends on what your strategy is specifically. Now, sometimes people will have a pay per click strategy going when maybe call volume is really low and we just need to get those phones ringing. So we're going to have a PPC strategy rolling that people can utilize. We may have an offer tied to it with a free tune-up or a free estimate, free diagnostic, whatever that offer may look like. We may have it where we kind of turn it on and off if it's seasonally specifically. So we have to make sure that that strategy is continuing to evolve. So the same thing that we talked about with our SEO. It's not a set it and forget it, right? Our PPC strategy, we can change on a daily basis. Now, do we need to and do we hope we have to do that? Absolutely not. But that's how flexible it is, right? So if something's working, awesome, great, it's doing its job. If it's not working and we need to make some changes on that, let's get in there. Let's dive into it. Is it not working because of our keywords? Is it not working because of our negative keywords? Maybe we don't have the right search in there, right? Excuse me. So we have to make sure that with our PPC strategy, we have everything in line and we have it targeted where it needs to be targeted. So sometimes we're going to ask, hey, what's the search volume on those keywords? Let's see how many people in our area are actually searching for that term. One of the biggest things that I can recommend for you guys, and as we work through this with Lemon Seed, this is exactly what we do. So we're going to share exactly the tips and tricks. But the way that I search something is most likely not going to be the way that you search it. It's not going to be the way that my mom, my grandma, my brother, whoever it may be. Everybody is going to search in a different way. So we have to make sure that we have all of those search terms and keywords in there to fit a wide variety of people, right? Because as people who are involved with HVAC on a daily basis, we may say HVAC. The general population is probably going to say heating and cooling, right? Or they may just say heating problems. Who can I call? Heating services near me. Heater won't turn on. Heater has a funny smell. All these things are going to be different ways that people could actually put into Google and search. So, one of the things that we love to do, and I always think this is a great exercise, is we're going to give a scenario, okay? So, we're going to say, hey, I turned my heater on for the first time. It had this weird smell. What would you type into Google? Okay, then you're going to get all these different answers from all kinds of people. None of them are probably going to be wrong, right? It's the way they would search it. So then in the back of our minds, we have to think that we have to make sure that we would have the right keywords and search terms in to populate for every single one of those cases. Okay, so that's a great exercise that you can do with your team. Give them different scenarios and see what they would search in Google. And then when we're talking to our vendors with our PPC, or maybe you're doing it on your own, we want to make sure that we have all of those in there. And so then it populates when and where we should. Now, just as important as the keywords are the negative keywords. Okay? So we have to make sure that we are not populating and people are not clicking on us when we do not offer the service they are looking for. Okay, so sometimes heating services and plumbing services will go hand in hand. Some people are going to have plumbing, some people aren't. Now, we want to make sure that if we have it, we have those plumbing keywords associated. But if we don't, we want to make sure that's a negative keyword. So, say somebody put something in and I had a negative keyword in, it's going to make sure my ad doesn't show up to them because I don't service that specific area that they're looking for. Okay, and an example of this is boilers. If you're in an area where boilers are used, but maybe you don't service boilers or a certain brand or manufacturer, we want to make sure that we have those in as a negative keyword so it's not a wasted click and we're not paying for clicks that we cannot service or we cannot schedule. So that way we know if we've got our good keywords in there and we've got our negative keywords, then our PPC strategy is most likely going to be as effective as possible to share that information and make sure they have it at the top of their mind and that we're only populating on those specific services that we can offer. All right. So sometimes when we're talking about our vendors, we're going to make sure that we ask them these things like, hey, let's talk about our keywords today. If you're in Texas right now, with you seeing how the seasons are going, we probably need to make sure that we have heating and cooling keywords at all times, right? Now, if you're in a different area, maybe Colorado specifically, you probably don't need your heating and cooling keywords turned on at the same time, because if we're in the really, really, cold of winter, We probably need to make sure that we're not spending dollars and people are not searching for us with cooling and it's populating at the wrong time or we're wasting our dollars there. So we have to make sure that we think about where we are and what season it is and what's coming up, right? Because we've got to make sure those keywords are turned on at the right optimal times for the best efficiency for us. So our big things with PPC that we've talked about, search volume. Let's see how many people are searching for those key terms to make sure that we're putting our dollar and our budget on the best possible keywords. We're going to make sure that our good keywords are good and our negative keywords are negative and that we've got those in there in place, and so that we're not spending those dollars on things that we don't need. Now let's talk about content. What does content look like? And here's the big question. Can we repurpose it? Absolutely. So content is going to work no matter what we're doing, right? So our content that we use for our case study, it can also be used for social media. It could also be used for email marketing. So a lot of times we're going to talk about our funnels, right? And nowadays when we talk about things, here's the big trick of it. It used to be that people could see something 5 to 7 times. They knew exactly who you were and they knew what services you offered. They're now showing it's taking 11 to 13 touch points of somebody seeing your ad, seeing your brand, and making that connection. Oh, that's Yellow Bear Air. They have heating and cooling services. So, what does that mean for us as marketers? That's the big question. What does that mean for us as marketers? The big thing about it is we have to make sure that we are making those touch points and we're making them as frequently and efficiently as possible. So with that, we've got to make sure that that case study information, we're sharing it. We're putting it in a different, we're repurposing it and putting it in a different format to share it on social media. So for our website, with our SEO being so important on our website, that's going to be more verbiage and words, right? So for social media, how do you think that might change and how could we use it for social media? Prime example of this, a before, a during, and an after picture, right? And we're going to talk about it. But what's going to happen on social media? We're going to stop that scroll because maybe we have a really wonky placed unit and we're going to say, hey, this is where it happened. This is the during of us replacing it. And this was after we had that new install. And we went from before to after. We've got those pictures. We've got those familiar faces of our install team. And so we're promoting ourselves, but then we're also repurposing that content so it doesn't all have to be brand new, right? So if it's taking us this long for people to see us and know who we are, let's make sure we're getting this content out as often as possible. So we've shared it in a case study. We've shared it in social media. What's something else we could share it in? Email marketing, right? So maybe we have to think here about our different generations, okay? So the way that we're going to target it on social media, it may hit a different generation than one that's going to read a longer case study on a website. All right, so then let's also think about our email marketing. How can we make sure that we repurpose that information and we share it in an email strategy where we've already got all of our important people in there? We know who we service, we've got our customers. It's free advertising with our emails, right? Because we already own those contacts, and so we can just send it out to them at any point in time. So, how would we repurpose a case study that we've done a before, after, and during picture on social media to our email marketing now? Same thing, right? Let's include those pictures of our installers, of our techs. Let's include, like, hey, this is the familiar face of Joe that you can see. We can use it even as a highlight for email marketing, right? Let's talk about how amazing Joe did. Let's talk about what he was faced with, how he overcame it, what his solution was. And that's even something that we can repurpose as an employee highlight on social media. Okay, so we've gone all the way from one case study that we took from one of our installers or our techs when they came in and talked to us about during our team meeting about what was going on. We took it to social media. We showed a before, during, after. Then we took it over to email marketing and we wrapped it up and brought it back to social media as an employee spotlight. Now, here's the thing, we've used one story, right? We said we're all storytellers. Some of us may just like to talk a little bit more than others, but we've used one story and we have now repurposed it 4 different ways, all digitally, to make sure that we're sharing our brand story, who we are, what we represent, and why it's important. So we know everybody is going digital. How do we make sure that we're staying relevant? So we've talked about it, right? We know how important digital is. We know how important those touch points are. So now how do we as marketers and as contractors dive in and actually lay the groundwork and the foundation and make sure that our digital is as strong and as effective as it can be? We have to make sure that our SEO strategy, our PPC, our content, all of that's up to date. So let's do a deep dive, right? Let's search some things. The easiest way to check your SEO and even your PPC, let's go in and put some unique and organic searches in our fields, right? So let's type that in and see if we populate. See if our SEO is where it needs to be. See what that search volume is on the keywords that we have. And then how do we as a whole grow from there? So if we look at it and we say, man, I'm not populating where I want to when I'm typing this stuff in. Great, right? We found out. Because if we didn't dive in and we didn't know, then we didn't know there was a problem to be solved. So now let's get even deeper in it, right? And say, okay, this is great. This is awesome. I see now why I'm not populating because maybe I don't have the right keywords turned on. Maybe I'm populating on this service, but I don't do it. Well, then I don't have my negative keywords in, right? So no matter what, if you have a vendor that's helping you with PPC, SEO, or you're doing it on your own, there's never a better time than to dive into it than now and actually figure out where you are with it and then figure out how we can evolve and grow over time. So SEO, one of the easiest ways that we can go in there is we have to make sure that our verbiage is in there on the website. So that's actually the raw content of the words, okay? So we have to make sure that our website is not only pictures, because our pictures don't have our SEO content because it's not verbiage. Now, pictures are amazing and we better have pictures on there because we have to show who we are and what we are, and they have to build that trust. But we have to also make sure that we have verbiage that explains those pictures, tells us what's going on, why are they important, why did we include them in our overall marketing strategy with our website, right? So we share that content. So the more often that we can share that content, we can highlight anything that we have going on, the better off we are. Another thing that we want to look at with that on the SEO side of it is we want to make sure that if we put our website out there, and maybe we did a website 5 years ago, right? But don't you think that there's probably now, we're probably going to talk about those services maybe in a different way. So let's go in there and let's update our services. Let's update our about us. Let's update our verbiage on how we talk about it. Because then when Google crawls that, it's going to see it as a new text field and see it as new content. So with that, maybe we take it a page at a time. Maybe we take it a service at a time. There's no too small bite that we can take with the whole big picture of SEO, right? So we want to make sure that we're just actively in there and we're actively working on that site, and we don't leave it and just let it kind of go dormant and let it go to sleep and say, oh, it was great 10 years ago. It works. It does its job. No, Google's probably like, yeah, that's awesome. Right, great. You've got a website, but like you don't really care about it because you're not involved in it and you're not interacting with it. So those are some of the easy ways that we can go in there and we can update things. Update our about us, update our employees, update their bios, right? Maybe they've added a kid, maybe they got married, maybe they have a new dog, whatever it may be. Let's make it engaging and an exciting environment. So then also if we have our employees and we're talking about them, they're more likely to share that website because they're proud of who they are and who they're working for, because you have built the value and trust in them enough to have them on there. So, those are all easy ways that we can continue to modify and grow our websites over time and engage with that SEO to make sure that we're continuing to add to it so Google will also build that trust within us. So, again, Google's crawling it every week and a half. Now, am I saying every single week and a half on the dot you have to have new content? No. Would it be amazing? And would us as marketers absolutely love it? For sure. We would all be screaming at the rooftops. We would be giving you shout outs. Crystal would be calling you herself, saying, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing. This is awesome." For sure. But I'm not saying that your website's going to be void and null if you don't have any of that. Absolutely not. But we have to make sure that we're building that trust in ourselves enough to actually share what's going on. Because if we don't think that our digital is important, our business is probably going to start going down, right? We're not going to have those unique, organic, higher ROAs, return on ad spends, as we could if we're not actually playing the game with the digital. Okay, so we have to make sure that we've got our digital as strong as possible, especially as we start to evolve and everything's digital, right? We all have a phone that we walk around daily with. It's either in our pocket, in our purse, wherever it may be. It's readily available and everything is at our fingertips. So we have to make sure that we're there and we are as advanced as the technology that is showcasing us and showing our brands and our services. So here's the big things that we're going to continue to go over and make sure that we know. We have to build that brand awareness in our community, right? The more times people can search for our exact name and not heating and cooling services near me, the better off we are. Because if they search for Yellow Bear Air, guess what? We didn't have to pay for that search. If they search for heating services near me, and then our ad pops up and they click on it, we've paid for that search. Now, hopefully, we have a great conversion rate and they immediately call, they schedule, maybe they need a new install, and we've had a great conversion. But if we could build that brand awareness to where they already know, hey, Yellow Bear Air is my company, that's who I'm going with, I've just got to grab their phone number off Google. Absolutely, right? Because we're not paying for that. Then we've got to make sure that we're reinforcing that learning. HVAC's kind of a scary term, right? People are not exactly sure what that means and what happens with their unit. A lot of times people think, oh gosh, I've got to pick up this phone. It's going to cost me a lot of money, but I've really got to have my heating or cooling system fixed, right? They're a little intimidated because they don't know a whole lot when they get started. So, how do we break those walls down? We reinforce that learning. We share as much content as we can. We want them to trust us because we've been there. We've been a helpful friend. We've been a helpful face. We've been there in the times of need and we're compassionate and we have that empathy on the other end of the line when they're calling us and they're having a bad day because they're hot or they're cold and their their heating system or cooling system isn't working. We want to be that helpful friend to help them. Absolutely, right? All the help that they can get for sure. But if we can continue to do that from social media and just share as much tips and tricks as we can, then we're building that relationship. At the end of the day, it's all about the relationship for the conversion. And then we also are going to make sure that we're growing that SEO, right? We've talked about it so much, but I can't stress it enough how important our SEO strategy is to make sure that we have our customers engaged. They're there to learn, they're there to want to book a service. They know exactly who they're looking for and what the are that they're looking for to make sure that we have all that. And then lastly, we want to use our digital as our biggest increase and demand for recruitment, right? If our digital can recruit for us, amazing. We would love to put out any job and have 100 applicants and have it filled within 24 hours because we've used our digital as a great recruitment tool to show who we are, what we are, and how amazing you guys are as contractors. Absolutely. So at the end of the day, with a strong digital foundation from our SEO, our PPC, our email marketing strategies, our social media, we would all absolutely still agree that our goals are to increase brand awareness as much as possible. We want to make sure everybody knows who we are, what we do, and they don't have a question of a doubt as far as who their HVAC services providers are. We're going to expand that market, right? We'd all love to grow. Absolutely. We would want to grow as much as we can and make sure that we can fill the demand that's out there. And then lastly, increase those sales. So I think we would all be happy if we could increase sales as much as possible and have that ROA, return on ad spend, as high as we could and have the dollars rolling in, the phones are rolling, everybody's happy, our techs are in the trucks and they've got call after call. It's a happy day for everybody, right? So, lastly, what I can say is let's make sure that we have all of these super key important parts of our digital strategy there in place. And if not, let us know. Let us help you. We are here at the end of the day to help make sure that your digital is as efficient as it can be. So, if you guys have any questions, please reach out. We are here to be used as a great resource. And I hope you guys enjoyed this session, and I'll see you guys next time.